He cheated on me for a gold digger. Now I'm richer than both of them. Jasmine Williams stands in her Santa Monica office, the Pacific Ocean stretching wide beyond the glass. She looks composed, dressed in a navy blazer with pearls resting neatly at her collar, every inch the confident entrepreneur she has become. 5 years earlier, she was in Atlanta's Ponce City Market, clutching a bag of groceries when her life took a sharp turn. Across the crowded floor, she saw her boyfriend holding another woman close. He kissed her without hesitation, as if the 3 years he shared with Jasmine had been erased in an instant. That moment, brief and brutal, could have broken her completely. Instead, it became the beginning of a story no one expected. The woman he left her for had family wealth, luxury brands on her arm, and access to doors Jasmine thought she could never open. Yet today, Jasmine runs a business valued at $50 million while he struggles to keep his small consulting firm alive. How does a heartbreak in Atlanta transform into an empire that stretches across America? Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like this one. Tomorrow, we bring you another journey you won't want to miss. Let's begin. Jasmine Williams had worked hard to carve out her independence in Atlanta. At 28, she lived in a modest but welcoming apartment in the Old Fourth Ward, a neighborhood rich with history, just steps away from the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historical Park. It wasn't luxury, but it was hers, proof that her years of focus at Spelman College and long hours in marketing had paid off. Her days carried a rhythm she found reassuring. Early mornings with a cup of coffee, evenings walking along the Beltline, weekends exploring food stalls or catching up with friends. Life wasn't perfect, but it felt steady. Part of that steadiness came from Bradley Thompson. He was white, confident, and charismatic, the kind of man who could enter a crowded room and leave with everyone's attention. Working as a pharmaceutical sales manager, he earned enough to match Jasmine's lifestyle, but what impressed her most wasn't his paycheck. It was his ambition. He talked constantly about breaking out of the corporate mold and starting his own consulting firm. To Jasmine, that drive was exciting. Their relationship had begun at a networking event in Buckhead. Jasmine had been drawn to his charm. He had been drawn to her intelligence. Over time, that spark grew into something that seemed serious. They moved in together after a year and a half, splitting rent and groceries, buying their IKEA dining set with the satisfaction of a couple building a future. Bradley's dream of independence became a shared mission. Jasmine sat with him for hours in quirky coffee shops in Little 5 Points, sketching out business plans. She edited proposals on their dining table, often late into the night. She even contributed to his startup fund, taking money from her own savings, convinced that when his business launched, they would both reap the rewards. Jasmine believed her support made them a team. Where he lacked discipline, she stepped in. Where he doubted himself, she pushed him forward. Friends often remarked on how well they seemed to balance each other, his boldness matched by her steady commitment. But balance has a way of shifting quietly. It began with Bradley's constant phone calls. At first, they sounded like business conversations, opportunities he was trying to chase down. Soon, though, they became more frequent, pulled behind closed doors, and carried out on the small balcony of their apartment. Jasmine noticed the difference. The Bradley who once recounted every detail of his day now claimed he was too busy. His phone, once left casually on the coffee table, was suddenly always face down, locked, or carried from room to room. When she asked, he brushed her off. "Clients," he said. "Potential investors. You wouldn't understand how stressful it is." She accepted the explanation at first, telling herself that entrepreneurship required secrecy, that maybe he didn't want to share ideas until they were concrete. But late at night, lying awake while he texted under the faint glow of his screen, unease began to settle in. Still, Jasmine pushed away her doubts. She told herself she was being unfair. After all, hadn't she always believed in his ambition? Wasn't she the one encouraging him to join professional associations, even when the membership fees strained their budget? Supporting him meant trusting him. For a while, that trust held everything together. Outwardly, Their life looked stable. Jasmine went to work near Centennial Olympic Park. Bradley kept talking about his future empire, and their friends saw them as a couple on the rise. But beneath that surface, small cracks had already begun to show. Jasmine didn't know it yet, but the world she had so carefully built around them was about to shift in ways she never expected. It was a warm Saturday morning when Jasmine decided to stop by Ponce City Market. She wanted to pick up fresh ingredients for brunch. Her plan was to surprise Bradley with a homemade meal after a long week. She moved through the crowds with a small tote bag in hand, stopping at stalls filled with fruit, fresh bread, and local honey. The air carried the usual hum of chatter, footsteps, and vendors calling out prices. She paused near a stand selling fresh herbs. That's when her eyes caught something across the busy market. At first, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. Bradley. His tall frame and familiar walk were unmistakable. But he wasn't alone. A blonde woman stood close to him, petite, polished, and dressed like she had stepped out of a glossy magazine spread. Her clothes were sleek and designer cut, her bag a Louis Vuitton with gold hardware that gleamed in the sunlight. The red soles of her Christian Louboutin heels clicked lightly against the floor as she shifted closer to him. Jasmine froze. She watched as Bradley laughed at something the woman said. He reached for her hand, holding it in a way that Jasmine knew too well. A moment later, he leaned in and kissed her. Not a quick or casual gesture, but a passionate kiss, public and deliberate. The sound of the market seemed to vanish. Jasmine's chest tightened, her grip on the herb bundle slipping. In that instant, everything she thought she understood about her life shattered. She didn't confront him there. Instead, she turned quickly and walked out, weaving through strangers until she reached her car. The drive back to their apartment was silent. The streets of Atlanta, roads she had taken countless times, felt unfamiliar, almost hostile. The murals she once admired on the Beltline blurred past her window. Every stoplight seemed to drag, stretching out the agony of replaying the scene in her mind. Bradley was supposed to be her partner. The man she had believed in, supported, and sacrificed for. Yet he had stood in a crowded market, acting as if their history together meant nothing. When she finally reached their apartment, she sat motionless in the parking lot, staring at the steering wheel. She wanted answers but wasn't ready for confrontation. Instead, she went upstairs, placed the groceries on the counter, and retreated to her laptop. Her thoughts kept circling back to the woman. Who was she? The details were sharp in Jasmine's memory, the heels, the bag, the air of privilege. With deliberate focus, she began searching social media, combing through posts from Atlanta's business and social circles. It didn't take long before she found her, Victoria Sterling. Every photograph confirmed what Jasmine had seen that morning. Victoria, with her perfectly styled blonde hair and polished wardrobe, appeared at charity events, galas, and exclusive dinners. She smiled beside Atlanta's most influential names, her life documented through carefully curated images. Further searches revealed more. Victoria wasn't just another woman, she was the daughter of Richard Sterling, one of Atlanta's most prominent real estate developers. His company's name was etched across downtown buildings and luxury apartment complexes. This family wasn't just wealthy, they were connected at every level of the city's power structure. The weight of that realization hit Jasmine hard. Bradley hadn't simply chosen another partner. He had chosen access, influence, and a shortcut into circles Jasmine could never buy her way into. Sitting in the dim apartment, Jasmine's hands trembled on the keyboard. The betrayal cut deeper than she thought possible. It wasn't only about love lost, it was about being dismissed, replaced, as if her loyalty and sacrifices were irrelevant compared to the wealth of someone else. For the first time, the future she thought she was building no longer made sense. Jasmine waited until evening. She had spent the day holding herself together, carrying the weight of what she had seen at Ponce City Market. By the time Bradley came home, she was no longer shaking with shock. She was controlled, measured, determined to hear him explain. The apartment was quiet when he walked through the door. Jasmine sat on the couch, her posture calm but unyielding. "We need to talk," she said firmly. Bradley hesitated, his eyes flickering with recognition that the moment he had avoided had finally arrived. At first, he tried to deflect. He spoke about work, about being tired, about having no energy for an argument. But Jasmine pressed forward, steady in her tone. "I saw you this morning," she said, "at Ponce City Market. With her." The silence that followed was heavy. Bradley didn't attempt to deny it. He lowered himself into the armchair across from her and let out a slow breath. "I didn't want you to find out this way," he admitted. "Her name is Victoria. We met 6 months ago at a charity gala at the High Museum." The words struck like a blow. 6 months. That meant while Jasmine had been helping him polish proposals, editing his pitch decks, and contributing her own savings to his future, he had already been building a life with someone else. Bradley leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. His expression wasn't cruel, but his words cut deeper than cruelty ever could. "Victoria understands the world I'm trying to be part of. Her family has connections that can actually get me where I need to go. Investors, developers, decision makers, doors that will never open for me with you." Jasmine held her breath, her chest aching as she listened. She wanted to believe she had misheard, but his gaze was unwavering. "Victoria can offer me opportunities you can't understand," he said finally. The sentence landed with finality, a dismissal not just of their relationship, but of her worth. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about loyalty. It was about leverage, what she could or could not provide in his pursuit of ambition. Jasmine didn't shout. She didn't cry in front of him. Instead, she absorbed the cruelty in silence. For years she had believed they were building something together. Yet here he was reducing her to an obstacle in his climb toward status. Within a week, Bradley was gone. He packed his things into boxes with an efficiency that made Jasmine wonder if he had been preparing for this departure all along. His suits disappeared from the closet, his toothbrush from the bathroom, his favorite whiskey glasses from the kitchen cabinet. The apartment they had once made their own, with the furniture they had picked out together, the framed photos of trips, the little reminders of shared moments, transformed almost overnight. Without him, it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like confinement. Each corner carried a memory. Each drawer, a reminder of how much she had given to someone who had already decided she wasn't enough. The silence in those rooms was louder than any argument they had ever had. Nights became the hardest. She would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything she had invested, emotionally and financially, had collapsed so quickly. The future she had envisioned with him no longer existed, yet its ghost lingered in the space they once called home. Jasmine kept going through the motions of daily life, but the apartment became a prison of reminders. Every time she passed the coffee table where they had drafted his business plans, she felt the weight of betrayal. Every time she opened the closet, the empty space left by his belongings taunted her. The truth was out, undeniable and sharp. Bradley had chosen connections over commitment, wealth over loyalty. And Jasmine was left to face not only the heartbreak, but also the harsh task of rebuilding her life from the ashes of what she thought was love. The weeks after Bradley left were the hardest Jasmine had ever faced. She tried to keep her life together, showing up for work near Centennial Olympic Park as though nothing had changed. But focus was nearly impossible. Spreadsheets blurred before her eyes, meetings stretched on without meaning, and deadlines slipped through her grasp. Her mind was never in the office. It was stuck in the past, replaying conversations, re-examining moments, searching for signs she should have seen earlier. Her coworkers noticed. They asked gentle questions, offered concerned looks, but Jasmine brushed them off with polite answers. She didn't want their pity. At lunch breaks, she would sit at her desk instead of joining the group, too drained to pretend everything was fine. Outside of work, her friends did their best to lift her spirits. They invited her to brunches in Midtown, hoping laughter over mimosas might help. They suggested shopping trips in Buckhead, trying to tempt her with new clothes and distractions. She went along a few times, but the joy never stuck. Food tasted dull, conversations felt shallow, and even surrounded by people, she felt isolated. The apartment offered no relief. It was filled with reminders she couldn't escape. The sofa where Bradley had first shared his startup dreams, the dining table where they had mapped out plans, the balcony where he had taken his secret calls. Nights were the worst. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, weighed down by silence. One evening, trying to shake the heaviness, Jasmine laced up her sneakers and went for a walk on the Atlanta Beltline. The trail was crowded with joggers, cyclists, and couples enjoying the warm night air. She moved at a slow pace, half listening to snippets of conversations drifting past her. Two joggers ran by, talking loudly about an upcoming startup competition. They spoke about opportunities, investors, and the kind of growth that could change a person's entire career. The words caught Jasmine off guard. For the first time in weeks, her mind sharpened. She thought about Bradley's obsession with opportunity and how much of herself she had given to fuel his vision. She realized she had been treating her own talents as secondary, as if her role was only to support someone else's ambition. A quiet clarity settled in. Staying in Atlanta, in the same apartment, in the same routines, meant staying trapped in memories of betrayal. If she wanted more, she would have to break free, not just from Bradley, but from the version of herself that had settled for being in his shadow. The next day, still carrying that spark of realization, she began exploring freelance work. A boutique in East Atlanta Village was struggling to attract customers online. Jasmine offered to help while keeping her day job. She created a digital marketing plan, refreshed their website, and restructured their social media presence with strategies she had sharpened in her corporate role. Within weeks, the results were undeniable. The boutique's online sales grew by 200%, an increase so dramatic the owners couldn't stop thanking her. They told friends in their network, sharing Jasmine's name with others who needed help. For the first time since Bradley walked out, Jasmine felt a sense of momentum that belonged entirely to her. It wasn't just about the money, though the extra income helped. It was about proof. Proof that her skills had real value. Proof that she could create growth on her own terms, without leaning on someone else's ambition. Proof that the heartbreak which had nearly broken her could become the start of something greater. Walking back into her apartment one evening, laptop bag over her shoulder, she noticed the emptiness in the closet, the missing whiskey glasses, the quiet rooms. But this time, instead of feeling suffocated, she felt the beginnings of release. The space wasn't only filled with loss anymore. It held the first steps of her next chapter. October arrived with the weight of unfinished decisions pressing down on Jasmine. She had kept her corporate job through the heartbreak, but every morning near Centennial Olympic Park felt like wading through mud. The office buzzed with chatter about campaigns and deadlines, but her focus had shifted. The success she created for the East Atlanta boutique lingered in her mind like a quiet challenge. What if she could do this full-time? The thought refused to fade. Every day at work, she felt the contrast between her constrained corporate role and the freedom she'd tasted helping that small business grow. By mid-month, she realized she was standing at a crossroads. She could remain safe in a job that dulled her spirit, or she could risk everything to build something of her own. One Friday afternoon, after yet another meeting that left her restless, she opened a blank resignation letter. Her fingers trembled as she typed, but her heart felt steady. Within minutes, she pressed print, signed her name, and placed the envelope on her manager's desk. For the first time in months, she walked out of the building with her head high. Within 2 weeks, she packed up her Atlanta apartment. Staying in the city meant constant reminders of Bradley, Victoria, and everything she had lost. She needed new air, a new rhythm. Austin, Texas called to her. Known for its music, art, and booming startup scene, the city promised fresh energy. Her first home, there was a modest studio apartment near the South by Southwest District. The space was small, barely big enough for a bed, a desk, and a kitchen table, but its location mattered more than its size. She could step outside and feel the pulse of innovation all around her. Coffee shops doubled as brainstorming hubs, bars hosted startup mixers, and the streets buzzed with creatives and entrepreneurs sharing ideas. Compared to Atlanta's corporate atmosphere, Austin radiated possibility. People weren't guarded, they were collaborative, eager to exchange advice or connect over potential projects. Jasmine felt invigorated. The loneliness she had feared didn't consume her. Instead, she found herself swept into conversations with strangers who were just as hungry to build something new. Not long after settling in, she met Carlos Rodriguez. His family owned a Mexican restaurant a few blocks from her apartment. The place was warm, the food rich with tradition, but the tables were often half empty. Carlos, juggling roles as manager, cook, and marketer, confided one night that he feared they might have to close within the year. Jasmine listened carefully. She had seen this pattern before, a strong product hidden by weak digital presence. The restaurant relied on foot traffic, word of mouth, and the occasional ad in a local circular. But Austin was a city of festivals, students, and tech-savvy professionals, the kind of audience that searched online first, decided on reviews, and followed food influencers before trying new places. She offered her help, not as a consultant chasing a contract, but as a neighbor who believed in their story. Together, they built a digital strategy that honored the restaurant's roots while embracing modern tools. Jasmine refreshed their website, focusing on family history and signature dishes. She launched a social media campaign highlighting behind-the-scenes moments in the kitchen. She reached out to food bloggers and coordinated special tastings, pairing traditional recipes with the city's enthusiasm for discovery. The response was immediate. Within weeks, the restaurant's weekends turned hectic. 2-hour wait times became common, especially after a viral post from a popular Austin food influencer praised their authenticity. Delivery services expanded their reach even further, pulling in customers from neighborhoods that had never heard of them before. Carlos and his family were overwhelmed, grateful not only for the success, but for the way Jasmine respected their traditions while amplifying their reach. For Jasmine, it was more than a project. It was confirmation that she could replicate the results she had achieved in Atlanta, and on a larger stage. Word spread quickly. Austin's business community was tightly connected, and soon Jasmine's name circulated among entrepreneurs looking for someone who could breathe life into their brands. She began fielding calls from Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, small businesses eager to replicate the transformation they had seen at the Rodriguez restaurant. Every call reinforced her choice to leave Atlanta. She no longer felt like the woman abandoned at Ponce City Market. She was building a reputation of her own, one client at a time. Each success layered onto the next, creating momentum that pushed her further from the pain of betrayal and closer to the empire she hadn't yet dared to envision. At night, she returned to her studio apartment exhausted but exhilarated. The bed was tucked against the wall, the desk crowded with notebooks full of strategies, and the table stacked with proposals waiting for refinement. The space was simple, but to Jasmine, it felt alive with possibility. She often thought back to Bradley during those quiet nights, not out of longing, but as a reminder. He had once told her she couldn't understand opportunity. Yet here she was, in a new city, turning every ounce of her talent into results that no one could dismiss. By December, only 3 months after arriving in Austin, Jasmine realized her leap of faith had turned into a steady climb. The heartbreak that once left her hollow had been replaced with something stronger. The conviction that she had chosen the right path. Her story was no longer defined by what she had lost in Atlanta. It was being rewritten daily, in boardrooms, kitchens, and digital platforms across Texas. And she wasn't stopping there. After the early success with Carlos Rodriguez, Jasmine realized the potential to expand her reach. She founded Williams Digital Solutions, a marketing agency focused on helping small and medium businesses adapt to the rapidly changing digital landscape. From the start, she was deliberate about the type of business she wanted to create. She didn't want to offer one-size-fits-all solutions or chase fast profits. Instead, she focused on understanding each client's story, their connection to the community, and the unique value they brought to their customers. Her first roster included a mix of restaurants, boutique retailers, and local tech startups across Texas. Jasmine worked closely with each business, observing daily operations, interviewing staff, and even spending time with loyal customers to grasp the essence of the brand. She used this insight to craft marketing strategies that felt authentic, conveying a message that resonated not only online, but in the hearts of the local communities. By spring, Williams Digital Solutions had built a strong reputation across Austin. Word of mouth and targeted outreach brought more inquiries from Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Each new client provided another opportunity to refine her approach. Focus on story, not shortcuts. Every success deepened trust, and her clients were not just customers. They were collaborators in building visibility and growth. Recognizing the importance of building a capable team, Jasmine began hiring strategically. She sought people who shared her values: curiosity, integrity, and commitment to community connection. She wanted team members who could immerse themselves in the client's world and translate that understanding into campaigns that mattered. The culture she cultivated was collaborative and dynamic, encouraging innovation while emphasizing meaningful outcomes over flashy metrics. With a strong team and a proven model, Jasmine expanded beyond Texas. The Denver office opened to tap into the city's growing tech and startup scene, combining innovation with access to outdoor recreation that reflected her own appreciation for balance in life. The location allowed her team to maintain creativity and focus, and the market responded eagerly to a marketing firm that prioritized authenticity over aggressive tactics. Shortly after, the third office launched in Phoenix, a strategic hub for Southwest businesses and a gateway to the Pacific Northwest. This expansion opened opportunities in Seattle, Portland, and surrounding regions, and by carefully choosing partners and building networks, Jasmine ensured that every office replicated the core principles that had fueled her success in Austin. Through consistent effort and smart growth, Jasmine's personal net worth rose from modest savings to over $2 million. It was a result of careful reinvestment into the company, smart partnerships, and prioritizing clients' long-term success over short-term gains. Every contract, every client project, reinforced the agency's reputation and solidified its financial footing. Jasmine's approach stood out in the crowded marketing landscape. While many competitors emphasized flashy campaigns and viral content, she focused on depth. She worked to ensure each campaign reflected the authentic story of the business, highlighting connections to the community and demonstrating tangible results. Her methodology emphasized sustainability, ensuring that businesses not only experienced immediate growth, but also built lasting relationships with their customers. The agency's culture mirrored this approach. Team members were encouraged to spend time in clients' environments, learning the challenges, victories, and culture of each business. Training programs emphasized empathy, communication, and understanding brand identity from the inside out. Performance was measured not only by metrics, but by how well the campaigns reflected the client's values and connected with their audience. As Williams Digital Solutions grew, so did Jasmine's visibility. She began speaking at regional business events, sharing her philosophy of authenticity in marketing. Her insights attracted attention from local press, tech blogs, and small business networks. She used the platform to mentor other entrepreneurs, encouraging them to approach business with the same integrity and focus on long-term impact. The expansion was not without challenges. Entering new markets required understanding different regional dynamics, cultural preferences, and consumer behavior. Jasmine spent time traveling to each city, meeting clients in person, attending community events, and ensuring her team was equipped with the knowledge needed to create campaigns that resonated locally. Each office maintained autonomy while adhering to the principles that had defined her approach: authenticity, storytelling, and measurable value. By the end of the third year, Williams Digital Solutions had offices in Austin, Denver, and Phoenix, with the groundwork laid for further expansion into the Pacific Northwest. Revenue streams had multiplied, client satisfaction remained high, and the agency had become known for its ability to grow businesses without compromising their identity. Jasmine reflected on the journey from the studio apartment in Austin to a multi-office enterprise. The risks she had taken, the nights spent working alone on client strategies, and the early days of small victories had created a foundation that was both financially and personally rewarding. She had transformed the setbacks of her past into motivation, using them as fuel to build something that reflected her values and vision. Through all of this growth, one principle remained unchanged. Her business would never rely on shortcuts or external validation. Authentic connections with clients and communities were at the core of her strategy. Her story of transformation, from heartbreak to entrepreneurial success, became an inspiration for employees and clients alike. They saw not just results, but a philosophy of work grounded in integrity, perseverance, and genuine impact. By carefully combining vision with disciplined execution, Jasmine had built an agency that was not only financially successful, but respected across multiple regions. She had created an organization that could expand, adapt, and thrive, yet remain true to the lessons learned from her past. The value of trust, authenticity, and relentless focus on meaningful work. November in Denver brought crisp air and clear skies, and the Colorado Convention Center buzzed with anticipation. Jasmine stepped onto the stage to deliver the keynote at a major digital marketing conference, addressing over 500 business leaders from across the Rocky Mountain region. She adjusted the microphone, scanned the audience, and felt the weight of the room's attention settle on her. Her speech opened with the principles that had guided her from her first small client in Austin to a multi-office enterprise: authenticity, community connection, and understanding the unique story of every business. She spoke about storytelling as more than a marketing tactic. It was a way to forge real connections, a strategy that respected both the business and the customers it served. The audience responded with nods, some taking notes, others recording her words on their devices. After the presentation, the networking reception began. Jasmine moved through the crowd, exchanging introductions, shaking hands, and discussing potential collaborations. The energy was different from corporate conferences she had attended years before. People were curious, eager to learn, and genuinely engaged. As she sipped her water near the registration table, a familiar face caught her attention: Bradley Thompson. He wasn't the confident, polished man she had known in Atlanta. His suit appeared off the rack, slightly ill-fitting, and he stood alone, watching others interact around him. Recognition flashed in his eyes the moment he saw her. Jasmine approached calmly, her posture poised, her expression composed. Bradley greeted her with quiet hesitation. "Jasmine," he said, his voice carrying a mix of surprise and regret. "I didn't expect to see you here." She responded evenly, "Hello, Bradley. What brings you to Denver?" He admitted he was attending the conference to gain insights for his consulting business, which had struggled since his move back to Atlanta. He avoided eye contact for a moment, then continued with a confession that had been long overdue. "Things with Victoria didn't work out the way I thought they would. I've realized how much I underestimated what I had with you." Jasmine listened without interruption, noting the sincerity in his tone. Bradley went on to express genuine remorse, acknowledging that he had prioritized opportunity and connections over trust and loyalty. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "I left something real for what I believed was a shortcut to success. I see now how wrong I was." For the first time in years, Jasmine felt no anger toward him. Her response was measured, reflecting the growth she had cultivated through her experiences. "I appreciate your honesty," she said. "I've moved forward. That chapter taught me lessons worth far more than the pain it caused." The conversation was brief, but meaningful. Bradley recognized the woman before him was no longer the person he had dismissed. Jasmine had transformed, building not only a successful business, but also resilience, wisdom, and confidence. Later that evening, as the reception continued, Jasmine reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Standing on the stage earlier, sharing her philosophy with hundreds of leaders, She realized how far she had come from the apartment on the Beltline, from the betrayal at Ponce City Market, and the months of struggle that followed. Every challenge had reinforced her principles and sharpened her focus. The flight back to Austin offered a rare moment of solitude. As the plane rose above the Rocky Mountains, she watched the peaks pass beneath the clouds, the landscape shifting from rugged terrain to the flat expanses of Texas. In that quiet space, she considered the full arc of her journey. She remembered the first nights in her studio apartment in Austin, uncertain and anxious, yet determined. She remembered early clients who had trusted her vision and the team she had carefully built, ensuring every new office adhered to the standards of authenticity and client care she valued. She thought of Carlos Rodriguez's restaurant, where her strategies had proved that genuine connection could drive measurable results. Bradley's presence at the conference had been unexpected, but it underscored an important truth. Her success wasn't defined by revenge or comparison. It was defined by commitment to her own values, persistence in the face of challenges, and the ability to see opportunity where others might only notice obstacles. Looking down at the landscape below, she recognized that the journey wasn't about individual victories, but about creating lasting impact. Each client she had helped, each office she had established, and each lesson she had absorbed contributed to something larger than herself. Her business wasn't simply profitable, it was meaningful. By the time the plane descended into Austin, Jasmine felt a sense of clarity she hadn't known in years. The anger and doubt that had once occupied her thoughts had been replaced with strategy, focus, and a renewed commitment to her principles. She had transformed adversity into a foundation for sustainable growth, and that foundation was solid. Jasmine returned home to her office in Austin, reviewing updates from her team, client campaigns, and expansion plans. She knew the next phase would demand even greater attention, but she approached it with confidence. Her experience had prepared her for this, managing multiple offices, cultivating authentic relationships, and navigating complex markets. As she closed her laptop for the night, she reflected on the unexpected encounter with Bradley. It served as a quiet affirmation of her evolution. She no longer measured her worth against past relationships or others' perception of her success. She measured it by the value she created, the trust she built, and the integrity she maintained. That evening marked the completion of one journey and the beginning of the next. Her empire had grown, not because of shortcuts, luck, or the missteps of others, but because she had chosen a path rooted in authenticity, effort, and vision. Bradley's apology was a reminder of the choices she had made and the path she had walked to arrive at this point. The flight's gentle hum, the city lights of Austin coming into view, reinforced a simple truth she had learned over the years. Setbacks can catalyze growth, and challenges can clarify purpose. What once had seemed like loss had become the foundation of a life she had designed for herself, grounded, meaningful, and fully her own. 5 years after Jasmine left Atlanta, Williams Digital Solutions had expanded into 12 cities, employing over 200 people and generating annual revenues exceeding $50 million. The agency had become known for its consistent results, authentic approach, and dedication to helping clients tell their unique stories. Jasmine's personal net worth had grown to over $30 million, a reflection not only of financial success, but also of her ability to translate experience into value for others. One afternoon, as she walked along the Santa Monica coastline after a meeting at the West Coast office, Jasmine's phone rang. The call came from an Atlanta area code. On the line was Victoria Sterling, the woman whose presence had once altered the trajectory of Jasmine's life. Her voice carried a note of vulnerability that was unfamiliar to Jasmine. "I hope I'm not intruding," Victoria began cautiously. "I wanted to speak with you. I've been following your work, and I feel the need to apologize." Jasmine listened as Victoria explained her situation. The privileged opportunities she had relied on in her youth had diminished. Her father's real estate holdings had suffered setbacks, and she now faced the reality of building her own career without inherited advantages. Victoria acknowledged the role she had played in Jasmine's past heartbreak, recognizing that her own ambition had overshadowed consideration for others. "I convinced myself that if Bradley was willing to leave you, it meant your relationship wasn't real," Victoria admitted. "I see now how wrong I was, and I wanted to acknowledge it." Jasmine felt a mix of surprise and understanding. Years of experience had taught her the importance of perspective and forgiveness, not as an act of weakness, but as recognition of growth. "We all make choices we later regret," she said calmly. "What matters is how we move forward. I've used those experiences to shape my life and business, and I hope you can do the same." Later that year, Jasmine returned to Atlanta for the grand opening of Williams Digital Solutions' Southeast headquarters in Midtown. Hundreds of clients, business leaders, and team members attended the event, celebrating the agency's expansion into the city where her journey had first begun. From the windows of the sleek office, the skyline of Atlanta reflected a city that had been both the setting of her past struggles and the birthplace of her renewed ambition. During her opening speech, Jasmine shared the story of her journey with transparency and focus. She spoke about the importance of authentic success, achievements grounded in value creation, integrity, and consistency, rather than accomplishments defined by comparison or revenge. "Success isn't about proving other people wrong," she told the audience. "It's about proving yourself right. Your values, your vision, and your commitment are the foundation for meaningful growth." Her words resonated deeply with the audience. Many had faced setbacks in business or personal life and recognized in her story a model for transforming challenges into opportunities. Jasmine emphasized that authentic relationships, whether with clients, colleagues, or friends, required honesty and consistent effort. The lessons she shared were drawn directly from the experiences that had shaped her, including betrayal, struggle, and the deliberate choice to focus on long-term impact. Following the ceremony, Jasmine reflected privately on the path that had brought her here. The betrayals and disappointments of the past had become catalysts for personal growth and professional strategy. She recognized that true wealth extended beyond financial measurements. It included influence, community, and the ability to empower others to succeed. The agency she built was not just a business. It was a platform to foster opportunity and guide others toward meaningful achievement. Her thoughts returned to the lessons of those early years: the power of authenticity, the importance of consistent effort, and the value of embracing challenges as opportunities for growth. Each decision she made, from the early freelance projects to the multi-city expansions, had been informed by these principles. The journey had reinforced that setbacks could reveal strengths that might otherwise remain undiscovered. By the end of the day, Jasmine's perspective on her past and present had crystallized. The choices she had faced, trusting Bradley, moving to Austin, building a business from scratch, had all contributed to a life and career that aligned with her values. The confrontation, the heartbreak, and the determination to persist had yielded not only material success, but also personal clarity and resilience. Before leaving Atlanta, she recorded a brief message for her audience and followers. "The person who betrays you may think they are taking something from you, but they might actually be giving you the greatest gift: the chance to discover who you really are. Challenges can reveal your strengths, refine your focus, and show you what truly matters. What challenges in your life could become your greatest opportunities?" Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of transformation. Your support makes these stories possible. As she returned to Austin, Jasmine looked out over the familiar skyline from the plane window, appreciating the vast network of cities her business now touched. Each office, each client, each team member reflected the application of the lessons she had learned: commitment, authenticity, and value creation above shortcuts or external approval. The agency was thriving not because of luck, timing, or external validation, but because it had been built on principles that could endure challenges and adapt to new opportunities. Jasmine understood that true legacy was measured in the positive impact one had on others. She had grown her net worth, established offices across the country, and gained recognition in her field, But the lasting accomplishment lay in the empowerment she had provided for employees, clients, and aspiring entrepreneurs. Her story, once marked by betrayal and doubt, had become an example of strategic growth, personal resilience, and professional integrity. Looking forward, Jasmine planned new initiatives, mentorship programs for young business owners, expansion into untapped markets, and continued public speaking to share the insights she had gained. Every decision was informed by the understanding that genuine success required time, effort, and consistency, and that setbacks could be converted into transformative opportunities. As her plane touched down, she felt a quiet certainty. The path she had traveled, beginning with heartbreak in Atlanta, through risk and relentless work in Austin, to recognition and impact nationwide, had brought her not only wealth but clarity and purpose. Her journey demonstrated that betrayal, while painful, could lead to growth and the discovery of one's true capabilities. The life and business she had built were living proof that consistent effort, guided by authenticity and integrity, yielded results that were meaningful, sustainable, and transformative. What challenges in your life could become your greatest opportunities? Share your story in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories of transformation. Your support makes it possible to bring these stories to life.